Hey, true believers. Chris Mack coming at you today with Batman number 93. And I had to get this copy, guys. This is a Francesco Mattina variant. And at first, just looking at the style of it, because these look like the ones that kind of were part of the Rob Williams Suicide Squad variants, this reminded me of a Lee Bermejo cover. And that's what kind of really drew me to it. But, you know, great work there, Francesco. Love this variant. But anyway, enough gushing about this said variant. Let's go ahead and dive into this story. So this continues, picks up immediately after the last issue where Batman and the designer come face to face. And again, I like how Tynion works where, the designer initially was talking about how he outsmarted his greatest adversary, but not so much the case here. The designer wants Batman to explain to him his design in gross detail. And so that's kind of what this story leads up, what it kind of works around, which really does work. You'd think it'd be kind of boring, but I like how it ties into everything that we've been building up to and how the designer first talked to the Penguin, the Riddler, Catwoman, and the Joker. But before we get into any of that, let's talk about who made their Dark Designs, Part 8. This is James Tynion IV writing, Guillem March and Javier Fernandez artists, Tony S. Daniel and Tomu Moray doing the cover, Francesco Mattina doing the variant. And then here's everyone else associated with the book, and Batman was created by Bill Finger with Bob Kane. And so we talk about where we're kind of going through all the different assassins, which, when you initially read it, you're like, what does this have to do with anything? And we talk about how the Penguin was supposed to have his play in it. Same thing with the Riddler. Same thing with... Sorry, I have to use my iPod to hold the pages down because they like to flip on me. We go into how the Catwoman's design was supposed to work. So this kind of goes, like I said, what issue was it? Wasn't issue 90. I can't remember which one it was when we went to, oh God, wasn't it? I'm so drawing a blank here. The house that they burned down, it was called something house. But anyway, I can't remember. We're not going to go too much into it. But remember how each one of them had an interview with the designers. So this lays it out. And this is how they were all supposed to play nice with each other. But what Batman explains to the designers how the Joker doesn't play well with others, and what his design was supposed to be. The designer's design for the Joker was not what he wanted. And so that's what kind of caused the whole backlash in that last issue where the designer tells all his men to kill the Joker, and they all end up kind of losing their life, you know what I mean? And then this part, it's a lot of sitting and talking with Selena, but it has to be, It has to be addressed, and it has to be done. So even though if it gets a little wordy, it adds to the suspense of what you're reading here and what you're reading, which we'll kind of get into what everyone's been excited about. This, Harley versus Punchline. And it kind of, when you get into the broker, the underbroker. I was like, what's his name? I'm just not had enough coffee today. But they actually kind of sort of play out on why she calls herself the punchline and not the finish line. And it feels a little silly, but it kind of gives you an idea of what Joker's end game is and why her name is what it is. And what I like here is, you can see Punchline is enraged. And she goes, Harley's like, you're a Joker groupie. And she's like, you don't get it. You've never gotten it. Every day he's out there changing the world, making them see the clowns they really are, showing that they should laugh at death and tear down society. You know what, kid? You've got issues. Of course I have issues. How could I not have issues when the world looks like this? And we just beautiful. I think this is Guillem March at this point. And his artwork with Harley and Punchline going at it. Great work. And it actually ends on I was about to say a punchline, but it's not a joke. It ends on a cliffhanger for Harley. So you're just kind of like, well, what's going to happen with her? And it's sort of the same thing with the designer, where we find out how the designer is tied into the Joker and how all this, which is what I really like, is how all of this leads into the Joker War. So when you're kind of reading this, you're like, why are we going to Deadshot? Why are we going to Merlin and Cheshire? You know, and then all of a sudden, why are we talking about Harley? Why is Punchline in this book? And you know, you start to feel like when you're reading this, it feels like everything's just so disjointed, and you think it's just all hype. But when you get to this issue, everything starts to make sense. And with that said, I don't want to give away. I'm trying to find an indie panel to end on here. Here we go. How about we end right here with Punchline talking to Joker, where he says, "Say it. I want to hear the words." What words? Well, I would suggest, guys, either this cover or the regular one, Batman 93. Definitely a book you want to get, because this is the build-up for the Joker War. And I'm hoping that the Joker War is going to be like a great story, you know, with a lot of thought and subtext, but a lot of action, because Tom King's War of Jokes and Riddles, oh, that was painful to read. It had so much potential. And it just, like, you know, when you see, what was it? There's the scene between Deathstroke and Deadshot shooting at each other, and that was it. I was like, expound upon that. But no. So I'm hoping that the Joker War here is going to be a little bit bigger. And I don't mind if they take their time, like they did with, what was that arc way back in the day? No Man's Land. They stretched across all the books, but the world was fleshed out, and you enjoyed it, and you wanted to know more. And so that's what I'm kind of hoping they'll do with the Joker War. And this is where it all starts, and it finally explains, like I just said, all the stuff with the designer. But with all that said, I'm going to stop rambling, because I'm excited. I really had a good time reading this book. It's a high recommend. And if you guys have enjoyed what you've seen, please make sure to support your local comic shop and pick up a copy. And if you've enjoyed this review, we'd really appreciate it if you take a minute to hit like, share, and subscribe. Helps the club channel more than you could possibly know. And if you wouldn't mind hitting that fancy little punchline bell next to subscribe, that way as we continue to upload content, you guys will get notified. You can come to the channel, and we love hearing your feedback and having a dialogue and just chit-chatting with y'all down in the comments below or on our social media pages, which I will make sure to leave the links down in the description below. So with all that said, I hope y'all continue to have an absolutely amazing day reading, and happy hunting, true believers.